Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I love the energy level today. Keep it up. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's special, exciting meeting. It is a big birthday year for the DEC, 90 years of incredible speakers and networking. And we'll continue that tradition today. I especially want to welcome our DEC members. And if you're not a DEC member yet, just give me 10 seconds to try and convince you. Your next job, client, maybe even best friend, is right in this room. If you want to build your network and learn from thought leaders on our stage, then we invite you to invest in you and join us today. You can sign up at econclub.org. If you want to sign up today, we'll give you a free event ticket that you can use through the end of June. You can stop at our membership table after today's program. As we get started, I would just ask you to kindly silence your cell phone so we don't disturb the program. And if you've been with us before, you know we always begin with a pledge and a prayer. So I invite you to stand now and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by Father John McKenzie from Christ the King Church here in Detroit.
Thank you, Steve. The prayer today is taken with modification from the Catholic prayer for blessing of cars. I wonder why. Lend a willing ear, Lord our God, to our prayers and bless all those who work in the automotive industry, most especially Mary Barra and the entirety of General Motors. Bless all women and men who lead global companies, especially women as they show girls around the world that indeed women can do anything and more. Bless them with your holy right hand. Direct your holy angels to accompany them that they may free those who travel on the roads from all dangers and always guard them. And just as by your deacon Philip you gave faith and grace to the man of Ethiopia as he sat in his chariot reading the sacred word, so point out to your servants the way of light and love. Grant that, aided by your grace, and with their hearts set on good works, they may, after all the joys and sorrows of the journey through this life, merit to receive eternal joys. May you bless us, O Lord our God. Amen.
Thank you, Father, and you may all be seated. A couple of quick thank yous. I want to thank WJR, who's doing their focus show live from today's DEC meeting, and you're going to see them during our strolling lunch. I also want to say thank you to Detroit Public TV for live streaming today. And I want to announce a new partnership with WDIV Local 4+, and thank them for live streaming today's meeting as well. So you know, if you've been with us before, students are here today and always, courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors, and their morning already began with a private reception with Mary Barra. Let me just tell you who is with us today. We've got students from Northwestern High School and Schoolcraft College, compliments of General Motors. Students from Advanced Tech Academy, thanks to Mike and Amy from PwC. Northville High School, thanks to Angie and EY. Rochester Adams, thanks to Andy and Chris from InVio Automation. And we've got students here today from Eastern Michigan University. So please join me in a round of applause to welcome those students and thank their sponsors. And speaking of sponsors, I always want to take a moment to recognize and thank those who are sponsors and partners. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their generosity. They are the reason we can bring you programs like today. So thank you. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, let me know. Be happy to talk you through all the great benefits. Also want to take a moment to talk about our upcoming meetings, even though, yes, summer is approaching. We're not quite done with our meeting schedule yet. Friday, June 7th, we will be at LCA when we're excited to host Michigan State coaches, including Tom Izzo. We've got more coming in June. We'll announce those probably next week. And of course, July 9th, it's an evening of fun, and it's our annual fundraiser for the DEC. It's the Chairs Dinner. We hope you can join us for that. 90 years of speakers I mentioned, and those speakers tell the history of our country. Mary Barra now joins a distinguished list of 17 others who have graced our stage on May 23rd. Here's a couple of highlights. Way back in 1938, Frank Gannett, yes, you guessed it right, he's the founder of Gannett Newspapers. He spoke to the DEC, and his speech was titled, remember, 1938, The Road to Recovery. 1994, Governor Jim Blanchard was U.S. Ambassador to Canada at the time. More recently, Carly Fiorina in 2005, and 2 years ago on this date, we hosted the MSU coaches like we will again in a couple of weeks. So today we're pleased to add Mary as our 18th speaker on this day in DEC history. So congratulations to Mary, and thank you for being with us. Finally, you can use your smartphone. We want you to be involved in the program today. Take lots of pictures and share with your social media network. And you can also submit a question for Mary using the QR code that you see on the screen. And those questions are going to make their way to our presiding officer. Sandy Pierce recently retired from banking and is busier now more than ever. She serves many, many boards, including Michigan State and Business Leaders for Michigan. But of course, most importantly, she is the DEC's board chair. And we're so grateful for her support and commitment to the DEC and to me personally. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sandy Pierce.
A round of applause for our CEO, Steve Gregorian, who's doing a great job. Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon to all of our Detroit Economic Club members and the guests that you brought with us with you today. It's really my honor to introduce our moderator and our keynote speaker. I'm going to start with our moderator. She's a familiar face to all of you. Her name is Rhonda Walker. She's a confessed morning person. This award-winning, talented, and versatile journalist actually starts her day at 2 a.m. I didn't believe it. I had her show me her iPhone, and it is absolutely set at 2 a.m. She's the co-anchor of the weekly morning newscast at WDIV Local 4 News. She was born in Detroit, raised in Lansing. She holds a communications degree from Michigan State University. And this August, Rhonda is going to celebrate her 5th wedding anniversary to Jason. Then let me go to Mary Barra. Mary Barra, as you all know, is the chair and CEO of General Motors. She's now in her 10th year as the CEO. She's the first female CEO of a major global automaker. Mary's been instrumental in steering GM through really significant transformations. Just think about that. Her leadership is marked by a commitment to reshaping our automotive industry for the future, while at the same time maintaining the company's long-standing legacy. Under Mary's leadership, GM envisions a world with 0 crashes to save lives, with 0 emissions so future generations can inherit a healthier planet, and with 0 congestion so customers get back a precious commodity, their time. Mary holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from General Motors Institute, now known as Kettering. She received her MBA from Stanford University. She grew up in Michigan. met her husband Tony at GMI, and together they raised now 2 adult children. Mary's father, you may not know this, his name is Ray. He was a die maker at GM for 39 years. So look at the legacy she is following. Mary serves on the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company, Duke University, and our very own Detroit Economic Club. Please join me in a warm welcome for Mary Barra and our moderator, Rhonda Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone. So good to see all of you, and a big thanks to Sandy Pierce for that introduction. It's good to see you, Mary.
Good to see you.
Well, let's start out. I have a unique lens with General Motors. I've been hosting the Supplier of the Year Awards for over a decade and see the relationship that GM has with its suppliers, honoring the top 100 out of the 20,000 suppliers that they work with globally. And I saw a recent survey about supplier relationships showing this ascension over the last 5 years of very positive trend in terms of your relationships with your suppliers. Can you talk more about why that relationship is so important, and especially now?
Absolutely. And I know there's many GM suppliers in the room here today, so thank you for everything that you do. But we feel it's very important to have a good relationship with our suppliers because we're in this world of transformation and a lot of innovation, and we want suppliers to believe in us, to bring their best technology to us so we can get it on the vehicle or make it use it to improve our business. And so to do that, though, you have to have trust. So we try to work on innovation, quality, and yes, we also, as everyone's trying to take cost out with a very competitive industry, but we try to work together to do that. So we've been working to improve our relationship over the years, and I was very excited to see those results this year.
Global supply chain, it's something that we have talked a lot about in terms of the challenges. Where are we with those challenges, and how are you overcoming that?
Sure. Well, we learned a lot during COVID, first of all, with, as that impacted the globe, and the entire automotive industry has a very globally intricate supply chain. But what we learned there with something like the pandemic was that we did need to have much more resiliency in our supply chain. And then when we look at the geopolitical situation, we also need to make sure we have resiliency from a onshore or ally shore, in addition to continuing to look for innovations around the world. So you don't change a supply chain overnight. I think we in the United States learned that with things that we needed during COVID, and then frankly, right after COVID, we rolled into the semiconductor challenges. And so again, that really caused us to rethink and have much more resiliency in our supply base.
How do you see the supply base evolving? I mean, everything is moving so rapidly right now.
Right. It's interesting. I see many suppliers moving at our pace, investing and doing the same thing we're doing right now, balancing between an EV world and an internal combustion engine world. And it's going to overlap for a very long time. But I think we see, a lot of suppliers also coming back from, the impact of the pandemic, because I think we saw it happen in layers of, first it was this challenge and it was this challenge, a lot of challenges in logistics globally. So I would say we're working together to solve those issues and to strengthen overall the entire network.
Well, you heard in the introduction with Sandy, this is 10 years as CEO of General Motors. Congratulations
Thank you.
on that milestone.
Thank you. I have the privilege to lead a wonderful team, and I really feel that the men and women of General Motors work so hard every day, and I'm so proud of them, so it's really a privilege to lead the team.
So when you look back over these last 10 years from when you took over this leadership role, where the company was then to where it is now, do you have some proudest moments, major milestones?
Well, I think I've been at GM for a long time because I started as a college co-op at 18 years old. This is the most exciting time because, it's a once in a generation, once in a century type of transformation. And to be a part of it, and, we never thought EV adoption was going to be a straight line. We knew there was going to be ups and downs. Charging infrastructure is important. But I'm very proud of where General Motors is at in this transformation, and that we can meet the customer where they are with either internal combustion engine vehicles or electric vehicles. So I'm very proud of the flexibility, the technology, and the fact that a few years back, starting in 2018, we invested in having an EV platform. So with the EVs we're rolling out now, with whether it's the Cadillac Lyriq, or we'll have the Cadillac Escalade IQ out later this year, or the Chevy Silverado EV, the Blazer, or Equinox. These are purpose-built vehicles that have over 300 miles of range, have the technology, no compromise in performance. So I'm very excited to get those vehicles out into the world.
Well, when we think about internal combustion vehicles and EVs and how fast the technology and the software and the anxiety that a lot of buyers have, it's certainly affected the market.
Sure.
I'm wondering if, for you, did you foresee that? There's going to be challenges, but where we are right now, it does seem like less people are buying EVs while there's so much focus on getting more people to do so.
Yeah, and I think it's, for years now, consumers have been telling us they still want a beautifully designed vehicle. They want it to have the functionality. If it's a truck, they need a truck. If they want to, be able to carry, have the flexibility of an SUV, they want that. So you have to have the right vehicle, beautifully styled, affordable, because the consumer, especially we think about it, for most people, the car they buy or the vehicle they buy is either the most expensive or the second most expensive thing that they buy. They're very rational about it. But they also told us, I'm open to EV as long as it has, the right range, and generally over 300 miles is where people lose range anxiety. But then that's quickly followed by charge anxiety. Because again, right now, a lot of people who own EVs, they have another ICE vehicle in their garage. And to really get the growth in EVs that we'll see, people have to rely on, some people only have one vehicle they drive, and it has to be their everything vehicle, and that's most of us. And so making sure there's a robust charging infrastructure so they feel confident when I all of a sudden need to go on a road trip, or I'm going to go somewhere I didn't expect to go, that they're not going to be in a jam. And so I think that's happening. It gets better every quarter when you think about the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed 2 years ago. The first charger coming online from that funding happened at the end of last year, last December. So now you're going to see more and more chargers coming from that are funded there. There's a lot of startup companies. We did a partnership with the Pilot company, and the nice thing about that is there's an attendant there, because what also is happening, the companies that are putting together the infrastructure, they need to make sure not only do they have it installed, but that it works. Mm-hmm. And so I think these are challenges in the next year or two we're going to continue to solve. But also for General Motors, what we're excited about is because we've got such capable EVs coming out, there's a lot of people who maybe bought their first EV 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. It's like, come look at ours. So we see opportunity, and we're going to stay committed, but have that flexibility. Because in many of our plants, or I'd say a handful of our plants, we can build all EV or all ICE within the same plant, so we can adjust. Or we can, in some plants, it's adjusting between EV models. So I think we have flexibility to meet the customer demand.
As this market has changed, though, have you had to make a redirect in terms of what you're building, how you're building, where you're building?
Oh, absolutely. Not so much of what we're building and where we're building, but as we've gone through this transformation, what everybody was predicting in 2018 has been different. I would say every year we reevaluate, where do we think demand is, what are the important segments, and we've also, through the engineering development work that we've done, we've been able to become more efficient. And so we're constantly improving our plan and adjusting to where the world is, but that's just the way the industry is.
Do you have concerns about the Chinese EV market coming to the United States?
Well, I think, I've always been of a mindset of, if we have a level playing field, we have to compete and win based on strong brands. We have the highest loyalty of our brands in this country of any OEM. So having great brands, great design, great customer service, and then vehicles, the right portfolio that fits the needs of consumers at the right price. We're very much continuing to work on how do we drive efficiencies in our business to get cost out. But if there's a level playing field, I think we're going to stand ready to compete. So I think, governments around the world are looking to make sure there's a level playing field as we move forward.
Getting this infrastructure for battery power and recharging stations all across the country readily available when everybody needs it, like gas stations, sounds like that would take years. But it seems like we need it right now.
But remember, we started quite a while ago. And later this year, GM will have the opportunity, we'll be leveraging the Tesla network as other OEMs are doing. We've all now standardized on one standard for what the plug-in is going to be, and we'll transition to that. So I think there's more chargers out there right now than people realize. It's making sure people understand them, and then, as I said, making sure they're available, and when they're available, that they act, or when you head to them, they actually work, and that it's an easy experience. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we continue to make improvements, you'll see EV adoption continue to grow, because fundamentally, EVs are great to drive. Like, by show of hands, how many people have an EV or driven an EV? They're fun. Yeah, there's a lot of hands here. They're instant torque. It enables, if you have a purpose-built vehicle like GM does, you have, opens up all new design language. So I think, people, and then not having to go to the gas pumps, that's pretty great. So I think over time, as some of these issues are addressed, I think people are going to move to EVs because it's a more enjoyable experience.
When I think about the automotive industry, my family, I come from a GM family. Grandfather worked for General Motors. I have a lot of family members that have worked in plants in Ohio and across the country. And we've always been fans of the industry and the auto show and seeing the cars of the future and seeing this plan that companies have that really work way in advance of what it's gonna look like 10 years from now. But everything seems to have changed because things are happening so fast. So when you look at your projected plan, is it a 5-year plan? Do you have a 10-year plan? Where do you see General Motors in this industry in the next few years?
Well, at General Motors, we always are planning, I'll say over a 5-year horizon, but we update it every year. Mm-hmm. So, and we're even in this mode, setting milestones of when's the last moment we need to make a decision on a certain product line to give us the most information of what's happening. We've also shortened our development process. So in the past, and because we developed the Ultium platform for our EVs, we can get a new vehicle in about just a little over 2 years, where in the past it usually was 3 to 4. So being able to respond more quickly to the market, leveraging the wonderful workforce that we have, our manufacturing team across the country and frankly the region, they know how to build high quality vehicles safely and efficiently. So our goal is, as we make this transformation, is to take everyone along with us that's part of the GM team right now. And I feel really good about their excitement and their commitment as we move forward.
You've had to make incredible pivots. I think the pandemic taught us the word pivot in a whole new way.
Right.
What is your advice for so many other leaders that are faced with having to redirect and make so much change so rapidly with kind of an unknown future?
Yeah, I think you've got to, one of the things we have at GM is a very robust risk management process. You can't have duplication for everything, but you can look at, where are areas where they're critical and how do we address those. But I would say, I think we all learned a lot from the pandemic. I don't know where you all, but I remember the day I started to learn of this thing called COVID, mm-hmm. and what they predicted. I'm like, no, that can't happen. And then, a week later, I'm telling all of our employees to work from home, and a couple days later, we're taking the plants down. But I am really proud of the team, and this is where the ingenuity I love. Within 6 or 7 weeks, I think, we had people coming back to the plants, following safety protocols that allowed them to work safely. And I went and visited, between myself and our president, Mark Royce, we went and visited every plant in the United States. Our country leaders visited every plant with the simple question of, do you feel safe? And recognizing, as we all know, people had many different views. We went all the way from somebody who was very concerned because they maybe had someone who had a compromised immune system, to somebody who wasn't quite sure they believed it. And we just asked everybody to respect differences, and follow the procedures, and they did, and that was so important for the company. So I think when yes, you can look and you can forecast, and I think we all have to look at what are these crazy things and what can we do. I'll tell you for sure, we're documenting our COVID playbook, because really the auto industry came together to keep everyone safe, and then our safety protocols for many other manufacturing facilities, we shared readily with whatever industry, the supply base, and I'm really proud of that.
What keeps you up at night when you're looking at everything that is going on in the industry? What's that one thing that's given you stress right
Oh, it's
now?
just not one thing. I'm sorry. It's just, I mean, we're in a major transformation in an industry that is super competitive, changing every day with new entrants. So there's a lot that keeps me up at night. But I would say we have a very strong leadership team, and there's times I keep that pad by my nightstand and write a note so I can say, okay, I'll deal with that tomorrow. But no, it's just such a dynamic time. You've got to constantly be a little paranoid of everything that could happen and try to get in front of it and be best prepared as you can.
Is there synergy or work among other automotive companies, other OEMs, as you're charting this course and needing to have some in some areas?
I think that's a great question, and it's very important. We've had a longstanding partnership with Honda, fuel cells, autonomy, even on EVs, and we continue to have discussions. I actually think it's where the auto industry could be more efficient, because there's a lot of things that we all do that are not customer facing. Like, I always use the example of your HVAC system in the vehicle. You just want it to get the car warm when you want it warm and cold when you want it cold. We don't brand that. And so there's technology like that I think we could do a better job of sharing platforms. And so, I think there's a lot of conversation going on. Unfortunately, the industry hasn't been great at working together in the past, but I think now's a prime time with all the investment that needs to be made. So we continue to explore opportunities.
Well, you took an opportunity to take up space in one of the coolest buildings that's being built here in downtown Detroit, but it also gave some people pause. The RenCen is an iconic building within our downtown Detroit skyline, and seeing GM leave there, many people wondered what that meant. What led up to that decision?
Well, as we looked at, we've obviously got to have the business and our offices and facilities support the way work is done. And so, we're very proud of calling Detroit our home. We're actually moving back to where we were. Back to Woodward was, we've only had 4 locations in Detroit, and General Motors over 100-year history. But as we looked at the size of the RenCen and where we're at, and then also just work has changed and the way people work has changed. But it's a phenomenal space when you think it's on the river. There's the beautiful river walk. There's so much happening in the city. And as we spent time talking to Dan Gilbert and his team, we had talked about Hudson's multiple times, and it really came together that we can be a tenant, kind of the flagship tenant in that building, which is just gorgeous, and help that area. And then between Bedrock, General Motors, and the city, the mayor, and the state, we'll look as what's the best use for either that building or that property. And so we're committed to doing the right thing. And again, it's such prime real estate when you look at it, and the views are spectacular. So I'm sure we're going to come up with a good solution while staying in the city and being an important part of Hudson's.
So it wasn't because the RenCen is so confusing and we get lost every time we go in it?
Well, no, we did a lot to improve the RenCen, by the way, with the different signage, et cetera. We made it more accessible, taking all the big cement berms down. I know a good friend of the Detroit Economic Club is Matt Cullen. He was a big part of that. So I think we've done a lot to improve it, and we're going to look for the right opportunities, because it's a special place.
Are any of the thought processes demolishing the building?
We're first looking at what can be done and what would be the appropriate use for the business. So we've got a year to do that, so that's where we're focused.
What about your investment here in the city of Detroit? Yes, you're maintaining your headquarters here as you have for the last 100 years, but what is GM doing to continue this surgence of our city right now?
Oh, many things. One, our Factory Zero is, in Detroit. It's Detroit-Hamtramck. It's actually, on the border. So we have manufacturing here, and there's supply base to support that plant around here. A few years back, we committed $50 million to help economic development in the city and education. We also were one of the first companies to support the Detroit Children's Fund, because there's so much happening in this city, and the Detroit Children's Fund is focused on having quality education in the city. And so at General Motors, education, specifically STEM education, is one of our priorities for corporate giving, and so that's a big focus as well. And Mark Royce has done a tremendous amount with what's happening in the school districts, et cetera. So we'll continue to invest as we have. I wish I had brought the total number just in the last 10 years, because again, Detroit is our home, and we're committed, working with the mayor, working with Wayne County, and being a good resident.
What are the opportunities? There's a lot of different business people here in our audience, business leaders from many different industries, including the automotive industry.
Sure.
But what are their opportunities with GM and partnerships? And is there anything you can share about that path?
Well, again, as I met some of the people who are attending today, many of them are GM suppliers. So, we try to focus and use supply base, from a Michigan perspective. We also am very proud of our supplier diversity program. And so, we're always looking for good ideas. But I also would say, on the philanthropic side, join us with Detroit Children's Fund on supporting our schools, because I think the long-term strength of our city is going to be dependent on having great schools. So when people come, because so many people are coming to the city, but if they get married, have kids, or bring a family with them, they care about education, and so we need to make sure that the city also has a strong education system.
Well, your education has been right here in our great state of Michigan, excelling within the company all the way to the top job as CEO. Seeing women in the CEO position, while we are seeing more and more, there's still a huge gap there. Do you do any type of mentorship, advocacy? What's your message to these other companies of the value of helping to mentor and escalate women into higher executive level positions?
Well, first, I think it starts at home, of the work that we do, and focused on a diverse pipeline to give people the right experiences that they're ready to be considered. And so we continue to focus that on many dimensions across the company. And I consider myself at GM to be important of sponsoring that work. And I'm very proud of the progress we've made, but we can always do better. I also think, though, organizations like the Business Roundtable readily share best practices so companies can learn from each other to continue to improve. Because I think if you have a diverse employee base, you're going to have diverse points of view, and you're going to make better decisions.
How can we get more women into CEO positions?
Well, I think, to me, it starts with education. I mean, when I have the opportunity to talk to students in middle school, boys or girls, it's always make sure you focus on math and science. And no matter what you want to do when you grow up, there's a math and science component. There's understanding software. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be a software coder, but you should understand technology and how it can apply to what you want to do. I think that's going to give you an opportunity. So it starts with getting more women with young girls into STEM, because those that lead to some of the core jobs across every industry.
When you look at your overall career in the automotive industry, what are some significant areas of progress that you've seen as it relates to women in automotive?
Well, I have to give the leadership team 25 years ago that gave me chances. I sit here today because 25 years ago, General Motors had a very robust program to give women and people of color opportunities. And I was lucky to be a part of that, because I wouldn't sit here today if 15 years before I got this role, I wasn't given opportunities to run a plant, to lead an engineering group, even then to lead human resources and lead global product development. But it started with those really important jobs that were core to our business, like being a plant manager, that they took a chance on me and gave me that opportunity. So I have to really thank the people who committed to diversity and developing everyone 25 years ago.
And does that still exist under your leadership today?
It does, and it continues to change, and it's something you always have to work on.
And so what is your advice to everyone else here in terms of running businesses and trying to level this playing field of pay for women and men to be equal? How are you doing that there at GM, and how do you see other companies being able to follow that?
We just have to commit to it. I mean, at General Motors, we have pay equity. It's something we regularly look at across our organization. As we all know in business, what leadership focuses on and measures gets done. And so I think you have to have a commitment to it. But I think it starts from a hiring, then you've got to make sure you retain, develop. There's no shortcut.
What advice do you have for other companies that are dealing with the amount of talent that you need, this changing environment, this global environment, and hiring, people working from home, that people not wanting to come to the office? What advice do you have just for navigating what's such a different way of working today?
Well, I think you have to look at the role, and about a year or a little less than a year ago, we had asked people to come back, and we had said, please, be where you can do your best work. And let's remember, we had people a handful of weeks into the pandemic back at work, building our vehicles in our design centers, in our R&D labs, out in the field, visiting dealers and helping them. So we had all these people that for a couple years now had been working like they did pre-pandemic. And so we had to help everybody understand that, but then it became, how do we build design vehicles and have support staffs that all need to be there. When you're integrating 30,000 parts and working with the supply base, you can't do that, or you can't design a vehicle over Zoom. And so we asked everybody to be back. I would say, of course, this happened across all industries. Everybody was like, wait, but as they came back, because we had hired a lot of people. Most people don't realize at General Motors, over 40% of our technical talent has been with the company less than 5 years. And we had been hiring through the pandemic, so we had people that had never been in the office. And when they came in, we also used the pandemic time, once we understood what COVID was, and that we were gonna be able to keep our people safe, keep our customers safe, and have a strong balance sheet. We used that time to renovate and move to much more modern spaces in many of our facilities. So when people did come back, they're like, and spent a couple weeks, they were like, I get it. I want to be here. Mm-hmm. And I always talk about it. It's that you're not going to set up a Zoom or a Teams call to ask a simple question, but it's really easy to walk over to the more senior person next to you and say, hey, I've got this challenge. Have you ever faced this before? Or bump into someone and solve an issue. And that's the way work gets done, and that's the way you learn. So whether it's casual mentoring, casual learning, or just networking, so you understand what different people do. You run into them in the cafeteria and have a quick lunch with them. Those are all important parts of development. I think about how many times as a new engineer when I joined GM, I learned from the people working around me. So for the most part, I would say it's a very small minority that I think are just going to be unhappy about everything. I call them cave people, currently against virtually everything. But that's a tiny little percentage, in a normal distribution. So many of our people, they're excited to be there. They're excited to be in an industry that's changing the world for the better, and so that's what I focus on. And I try to ignore the people who, and the other thing is, I don't know, business leaders, sometimes going to Reddit. Not everyone even works at your company who's got an opinion on you. So you gotta take things with a grain of salt.
So how do you rally your troops at General Motors when you're looking at just how rapid everything has to happen in your industry? How do you keep everybody motivated and fired up?
Well, one of the cool things about our business is everybody gets pretty fired up about our vehicles. And when we can launch a new vehicle, and we're trying to do a much better job of making sure everybody knows, hey, we just are releasing to dealers the new Chevrolet Equinox EV and the Silverado. Like, what do you need to know about this product? And we're also getting our employees, now that we're through all the constraints of the pandemic, getting them into our EVs. A lot of people were giving them the opportunity, if they're part of our company drive program, and we're looking at other opportunities to get excited and experience EVs. So that's one thing. If we communicate well and people understand what they're doing, the vehicles are pretty exciting.
You've had a long career, and being a CEO for GM for 10 years, I was looking back just in recent years, just of me following all of the OEMs, and someone staying in the CEO position for a decade now seems rather rare. How long do you plan on continuing to lead?
Well, you know what, I think this is the most exciting time. Obviously, that's a question for the board, not for me. But you know, I'm having a lot of fun, and I want to make sure we have our transformation on a good path. So I'm young and in good health. I've got a supported family, so I don't think I'm headed anywhere soon.
All right. I know a lot of people are probably glad to hear that. When we look at the empty spaces, though, in a lot of our commercial real estate, do you see that changing back to more people going to work? I mean, you talked about that importance of having that one-on-one interaction, but then there's a lot of young people that have come up in this time of remote work that really don't desire to ever do that. So,
but they don't desire to do something they've never done. So I think
True.
like get there, understand the benefits. I think it's hard for me to predict. Because it's funny if you look at it, you know, it was 2 years ago they were predicting it would all stay remote. It hasn't. Then it was going to be hybrid. We always, you know, tried to work with our employees to give them some flexibility for, when you have a doctor's appointment or such. And so I think, you know, what employers learned is we have to figure out how do we provide that flexibility. And for us, you know, even in a manufacturing facility where, you know, we've got to make sure we have enough people to run our assembly lines. Figuring out how you can accommodate people, I think, is important to having them love the job, feel that they can do it, and still do what they need to do for the rest of their life.
but that quality of life is very important.
Absolutely.
And when you've been around for a long time and you see what young people are getting now, you're like, you're lucky. You have no idea. I don't know when we had doctor's appointments and went to the bank back in the day. But any closing remarks for now? We're going to bring Sandy back and get some of those audience questions. But any closing message that you have for our audience?
Well, just first of all, appreciate all your commitment to the city. It's a special city. It's where General Motors has called it our home, and will continue to do that as we move forward. It's an exciting time in our industry. If you haven't driven an EV, I'd really encourage you to go check out really the suite or the portfolio of vehicles we have right now. I'm very proud. If you're still committed and want to drive an internal combustion engine vehicles, I'm very proud about that. So that's my commercial for our sales and marketing team. Give our vehicles a look. I'm very proud of all of them.
Mary Barra, thank you so much.
Great conversation. Thank you, Rhonda, for moderating Mary. And I have some audience questions. I'm not going to get to all of yours because there's too many, but I'm going to try to do as many as possible. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. And, there's not a day that goes by when you turn on the TV or pick up a paper that you can't see an article about what AI is doing for the future of this country. Mary, talk about the impact as you see it of AI, not only on the GM vehicles, but on the actual GM workforce.
Sure. We're all still learning, and we're actually members of groups making sure we have, I'll say ethical and can deploy AI in a trustworthy way. But I do think if you think about AVs, autonomous vehicles, that's the ultimate in artificial intelligence coupled with machine learning. And so I think that really leads to a world where we're going to be safer because, excuse me, 90% of accidents that happen on the roads today, the last time NHTSA did the study, 90% of them were caused by human error. So if we have technology that doesn't drive impaired or sleepy, that knows all the traffic laws, follows all of them, I think that's going to lead to safer roads for everyone. So I think that's kind of one of those generational type changes. But I think, and I've encouraged, I actually got to speak to some of the students, so you're going to hear something I said earlier, is I think for AI, it will enable us to make jobs better. So I think one of the things I've heard people say, and I agree with, is AI isn't going to eliminate your job, but it's probably going to get rid of some of the administrative tasks, but allow you to do more of the value-added tasks and the fun tasks. So I think it's early to tell, but I think AI will have profound impact over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond.
Thank you. Okay, here's another one. As customers ask for more connectivity between their personal devices and their vehicles, how is GM balancing customer data privacy versus offering connectivity?
Well, I think you can have connectivity and still have privacy, and from a cybersecurity perspective as well. We're committed, and we've made some recent improvements as we realized there were some areas where customers gave us feedback that we could do better. So we made changes pretty quickly. But we're committed to having a trusting relationship with the consumer. But we do believe pulling data off the vehicle, potentially marrying it with their phone, is going to allow for a better experience, a more seamless experience. But we can do that in a way that's very transparent to the consumer and that they have choice in. And that's the path that we're going, and we're going to continue to improve it.
Okay, here's another one from the audience. Some U.S. OEMs are outsourcing engineering to foreign countries. Will outsourcing engineers in foreign countries discourage people from becoming engineers here?
I hope not. I think General Motors, our core engineering talent is not only in Michigan, but also we just opened up a technology hub in Mountain View, California. So we're very much leveraging the talent that we have. We have a robust process where we hire people from many different colleges and technology schools across the country. So we're going to continue to do that. I can't speak to what other companies are doing, but we really believe in American innovation.
Okay, here's one that I didn't even realize. GM and NASA have a long relationship. Anything new going on that front?
Well, we're very proud that we did the first lunar unit. I think that's what it was called. Too soon to tell what will be next.
Can I ask an Elon Musk question?
I don't know if I can answer it, but sure.
Okay. Musk's antics have hurt Tesla's brand. Thank God. How do you view... Oh, that wasn't part of it. Sorry. How do you view the role of the CEO, and how much should a CEO speak up on issues?
Well, I think Elon Musk is an entrepreneur. I have respect for him, and I think there sometimes is a kind of a different playbook for entrepreneur, or I should say innovators. I would say from a company that's been around for 100 years, at General Motors, we have to really think through, and we try to talk about issues that are consistent with our company values. We employ thousands of people in this country, and over 130,000. Over 130,000 globally, and if you get 10 people in a room, you're going to have different points of view. So we try to respect and ask everybody to respect each other's different points of view. And then we try to speak out on issues that are consistent with our values. And I think that's the place that GM should be, and I think most of corporate America is adhering to those types of guidelines.
Okay, one more question, then I'm going to go to the lightning round. This is interesting to me. I know you're doing this. How is General Motors working with their suppliers to ensure they are financially healthy as the industry evolves from ICE to EV?
Well, just like at General Motors, we're working with our facilities that are building internal combustion engines to move. And some of our very strategic suppliers, we're talking about how do they help make that shift. So it's an interesting time. A lot of it, though, is the supplier's choice on what they're going to choose to invest in. But there's been many conversations, some of which I've even been a part of, but more so Jeff Morrison, who runs our global purchasing, and his team, understanding what the transformation is being. Because we are in a period of uncertainty right now of exactly what demand will be. So it's active conversation.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the lightning round. Real quick questions. Give us something on your bucket list.
Oh, sleep. That's not very good, but sorry. Travel with my husband.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, here's one. I wish I was better at fill in the blank.
These are hard, Sandy. I wish I was better at coding software.
Ooh. Name a karaoke song, I won't make you sing it, that you can nail.
I can nail it if there's a lot of other people singing it, and so you can't hear my voice because I can't sing, but it's Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer.
All right.
You all know the words.
Yes.
And see, that's the benefit. You should always pick a karaoke song that everyone knows the words, so then they start singing with you.
Okay.
Well done.
All right. Last lightning round question. Advice to your 25-year-old self.
Go for it. You know, I think especially for women, so often women, and this is across industry, if there's a job opportunity and there's 10 requirements, they'll say, well, I've only got 8 or 9 out of 10, I can't apply. And generally, a man will look at it and say, I've got 6, I'm going to go for it. And what I say to the women is, if you got 6, go for it. Because you're going to learn from you may get it. When there's 10 requirements listed, they're generally not all equal. And but even if you don't get that opportunity, people are going to know you're interested. You're going to learn from the interview process. So go for it.
There you go. How about a round of applause for Mary Barra and our moderator? Thank you so much. We're going to bring Steve Gregorian back up.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mary. We know how valuable your time is, so thank you so much. It's been 10 years since we had you. We were probably one of your first public appearances when you became CEO. So thank you again for your time and your generous support of the Detroit Economic Club. Rhonda and Sandy, by the way, the go for it, I think you did that because Rhonda is here.
Yeah.
I was like, did she just say go for it?
Go for it.
I did.
Of course, our tagline was WDIV and our community service commitment. So we're in this together.
Yes.
I love it. Rhonda, thank you, and Sandy, for your important roles. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to invite you to join us in the ballroom outside for a strolling lunch where you can meet other DEC members. But first, tell your friends and colleagues to join the Detroit Economic Club because we're a pretty cool group of people. So on time, every time, this meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you.